Awesome. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Monday. It's Wednesday, but I feel like we should pretend it's Monday and you'll have a super short week. So let's kick it off. First of all, I want to give a shout out to Jav, Skarbek, Yorick, Myra. Thank you so much for your help last week with the incident. Super good that we jumped in quickly, identified the issues, and were able to get those resolved really quickly. So well done. Awesome. Hey, Jav. So, Jav, you'll be out of office. Can you all hear me? I feel like...
Yeah, I think for the announcements, we just read them and move on.
Awesome.
Yeah, we just skip those, yeah.
Great. So Jav, Robert, Skarbek, you've all got some out of office this week. Maren.
Yeah, I'll just mention, because it came to my attention that not everyone is aware, we have a product manager in infrastructure that joined, I guess 2 weeks ago, so 15th of June. They are ramping up slowly and you might start noticing them being around. His name is Andrew Thomas. So feel free to reach out to him if you want to grab a coffee chat. But don't be surprised when you start seeing a product manager in our sphere of influence. I hope that's going to be a constructive collaboration.
Awesome.
That's it. Over to him.
Awesome. So I just want to give a shout out that we ducked underneath our MTTP target, which is awesome. So well done on all your efforts there. So 24 hours will remain as our target for the next quarter. We could try and do loads of manual stuff to make it faster, but actually be much better if we took some time to work out how do we do that with automation, right? So the next step to before we reduce the target is working out what can we do, and hopefully something around those Sentry logs to make it a bit easier and faster to self-promote these things. So, but well done on progress there. Cool. So I just wanted to follow up on the incidents we had last week. Slightly less relevant now; it's moved a couple of days. But we had these two incidents. One of them was an interesting edge case in the way Ansible handles patches, which was like we were going to hit it at some point. So this one was actually a decent way to find it. Like it wasn't too problematic. We fixed it really nicely and quickly. And the other one was around the Sentry logs not being very clear, or issue errors in Canary not being as obvious as we'd like them to be, causing issues. So I really just wanted to highlight those two things. Jav, do you want to give a little bit of context on those that you've added?
Sure thing. So, so like Amy said, we would have hit this bug sooner or later. This had to do with an empty directory, which caused an error, which then caused us to drain more VMs than we thought we should have. The fix here was to halt the deploy if any server within a batch fails. This came as a bit of surprise to everyone I talked to, or at least myself and Skarbek and others. We all thought that failures halted the Ansible run. But this actually was not the case. It's not something we saw in staging because our batch sizes are small. You would think this would be the default behavior, but it isn't. So we updated that behavior so that if any host fails in a batch, instead of all hosts fail in the batch, then it will just halt immediately. That change we rolled out right away. We also fixed a problem, kind of a long-standing problem, where we were deploying to Canary hosts with the production fleet. And this will be much nicer now because previously when we promoted to production, we were including the Canary host. It was like a superset of production and Canary. This meant that we always had the potential of rolling back Canary, unintentionally, because we could have a production deployment and a Canary deployment happening simultaneously, and they could just interfere with each other. So now that this change is over, or change is done, we are only deploying to production excluding Canary. This required a bit of refactoring, and it also helps with our deploy times as well, because I expect it to go down because we aren't including the Canary hosts, even though they were pretty much a no-op before. There is another comment here about HA proxy, the HA proxy script, which actually goes all the way back to takeoff. It's been modified over, like, I guess, years now. I would love just to get rid of it, but I'm a bit hesitant to, because it's like a pretty essential part of the deploy. We do have a Ruby. I converted it to Ruby for ChatOps. So the code is there and it has tests and it's much nicer. It's just that we haven't put it over to deployer because, like, we already have Python in the image. If I were to use this Ruby script, I would need to also include Ruby. Having Ruby and Python in the same CI image, I mean, it's going to make it much larger. So for now, like, maybe we'll hold off on it. But like, I don't know. I think, like, I don't know what the what the impact would be of having a very large image. Like, I assume the image itself is cached on the runner, so maybe it's not that big of a deal. Like, maybe we only have to pull it once. Since we aren't using, we're using a static runner. We aren't using auto-scaled runners. That's pretty much it.
Cool. Do you have any other next steps for that? Like, something, is you investigating that, or you do anything?
Yeah, I mean, I'll open up an issue for the converting the HA proxy script to Ruby, or using the code we have. But I think this is a pretty low, maybe a lower priority item. The rest of the corrective actions are already finished. We finished the last one today with the deploy to production. We confirmed that the Canary hosts weren't included. So I think we can pretty much wrap this up.
Awesome. And yes, thanks for your fast turnaround on those things. That's really good. Just wanted to sort of raise, like, obviously a couple of these were sort of risks around pipelines. I guess more for me, just as I'm super new, like, is there anything else that we should be, is there anyone sort of got in their mind that that's a kind of risk or a concern they have over our pipelines that we should be thinking about? So, Jav?
Yeah, your comment there, I did do a quick audit to see if there was anything else. I don't see anything else that would be affected by this. I think deployer and patcher are the only Ansible pipelines we have that use this serial, like, doing deployment or rolling deployment in batches. We have the command executor, which is it's basically a way to run ad hoc commands across the fleet with HA proxy trains. I made sure that this change also applies to that, so that's covered. I think we're pretty good here.
Awesome. Thanks for adding that. If anyone else, like, has any thoughts around that, or comes across something, then feel free to raise it up so that we can sort of think about adjusting it. But awesome, that's really good stuff. So Alessio.
Sure. So this is just an heads up. So we are moving GitLab version bumps outside of auto deploy branches, because this was causing troubles with understanding when there's breaking changes, and also it's making the security release more complex than what is needed. So there's an issue with the discussion, and I have a merge request for changing this behavior. Someone will receive it for review in maybe today or tomorrow. And for your question, now this doesn't impact the work is doing on API for releasing components, or if with the API. Back to you, Amy.
Awesome, thank you. So I wanted to just talk a little bit about the dev escalation process. So it's come up a couple of times last week in Slack, and a few other people have mentioned it. Are you all comfortable that the dev escalation process as it stands right now is meeting all of our needs? Like, do we get the support we need?
Well, I think that the biggest problem that we have with the dev escalation at the moment, at least for my side, but I think I'm not the only one, is the fear of retaliation of using it. So every time you trigger it, especially, I mean, as a release manager, then you may get questioned about why you did it. And then, I mean, you just find out there's the procedure, and we made sure, Marin and I made sure that in that list there is an item that say if you have problem with the deployment, we can trigger it, but it nevertheless it still happens. So when you trigger it, then you get questioned why you did it.
Cool. Yeah, we should definitely use it. Like it's there to unblock us and like escalate up. Like I don't know. Like I mean, Marion, can we send you in to fight this one if needed?
Of course, of course. So let me just repeat what you all just said, or what Amy just said. Sorry. There is a reason why we have this clause that if delivery is blocked for a deploy, or there is a quality pipeline failing that is preventing us from deploying, all bets are off. You don't have to know the priority or severity of it, because you can't know it, right? Like you can't know the whole system in and out. So the fear of retaliation that you've experienced, I hope is gonna be fixed by this change. So if anyone, literally anyone, says you shouldn't be using the process, ping me immediately, page me, and I'll work on resolving that or dismantling the process. It's one way or another. We are either going to get help, or we are not going to use the process or have the process at all. So I'm absolutely happy to help out there.
I think it's worth adding there. I think now we might get questions simply because I think we don't use it that often, which I guess is a good thing, or not, I guess, depending on the reason why we don't use it. But I would imagine if we start using it more often and more people are familiar with it, that they'll probably ask less. But that, of course, remains to be seen a bit how people react to that.
So maybe a small adaptation from our side. Not everyone knows people from delivery team or what release managers they're doing, especially because we are rotating role and so on and so on. Maybe if we prefix with, like any request with, we have a blocker with deploy, or we have an unknown blocker for deploy or for release, that should provide a sufficient heads up to everyone there. And if they don't know, we can always remind them. Here's the link where it says it's fine.
How do we use the process? Like, do we simply ask for help on the dev escalation channel? I am trying to skim like all the information in the handbook, but there is a lot, so I'm not sure.
If you get in the channel, in the topic, there is a link to a Google document with the schedule. So basically you open the schedule, you find who is on call, and then you ping him in the channel explaining where is the problem. And it usually helps if we already have an issue. So you can use the issue for discussing it, because otherwise you end up with 3, 4, 5 Slack threads where people are discussing the same problem. And then because the dev escalation shifts are shorter than, for instance, on calls, usually you go to at least 2 dev on the escalation. So having a single source of truth is really the key here. And this is how you start it.
Yeah, I'm seeing the spreadsheet. It has a lot of information also. But yeah, I understand.
Also, an item to highlight here with the dev escalation process is, I know some of you are backend engineers, so you feel the obligation of, or feel that you can actually debug the problem yourself. I have to repeat, this is not your job when you're a release manager. When you're a release manager, you're coordinating multiple things at the same time. So the fact that you actually have the background is a disadvantage. You should try to block it out during that period of time, because you want to make sure that all of the other things around it are in sync, or that you can sync them. If you go in deep yourself to investigate, to try to help fix problems, you're going to delay your work. You won't be able to get it done if you spend 3 hours debugging and then you have to do something. And B, you're going to create a huge amount of pressure for yourself.
Yeah, I want to double down on this, that it also applies to backend maintainers. So, because it happens that then the people assigns you the fix as a maintainer, and it's definitely worth saying, no, I'm release manager in this situation, so I cannot review this as a maintainer. Please assign to someone else.
I think this goes also for Jarv and Scarbeck, by the way. It doesn't have to be backend maintainers. It can be rolling out a change. It's the same thing. The fact that you know how to do this and are able to do it doesn't necessarily mean that you should be doing it, because you have other jobs to do at that moment. So engaging with SRE on call to actually roll out the change is better than you doing it yourself. So it applies for everyone. Cool.
Thanks, everyone. So yeah, go ahead, use the process and shout if it's still not working out for us, or if you have any immediate problems. Myra.
Yeah, just a small item on your favorite, the security releases. So we have been working hard to automate all the possible steps. And one that is bugging us for a long time is that the fact that we need to wait for the specific approval of AppSec. Like, they need to review all of the items on staging, like this one that they had 22. It took them basically a day and a half to do it. And that is annoying, because yesterday I had nothing to do other than waiting. But yeah, so that shouldn't happen anymore after this proposal. The proposal changes to require an explicit approval on the AppSec on the security merge request. So we are moving their review before the merge request are merged, which should speed things up. And we should have this place and process for the next security release. So that's it.
Awesome, thank you. And everyone should check out the awesome video that Myra did for that. I don't have the link handy, but if someone could drop it in, that would be amazing. Awesome. So